Hey there, survivors and dwellers. Welcome back. I am the Wasteland Historian. Join me as I journey through ruins to uncover the buried stories of the wastes. Today, we return to the ruins of Nuka-World to finish what we started. But this time, we're not looking at the bright and shiny masks sold to the public. We're descending into the shadows beneath it. Underneath the cheery facade lies a network of secrets, military deals, quiet betrayals, and bad business practices all tied to one man, John Caleb Bradberton. Let's lockpick some safes, hack some terminals, and reveal the hidden truth Bradberton never wanted the American people, or us, to find.
At Vault-Tec have...
What if there was a place with all the zip of Nuka-Cola?
Welcome to Nuka-World!
First, I need to note a few things about Bradberton that will be important going forward. He was obsessed with efficiency, perfection, and immortality. These three things guided him through nearly every decision he made in both business and in life, and eventually gave him one hell of a god complex. Let's start with the military contracts. In early 2076, a general by the name of Braxton of the Army R&D Labs approached Bradberton hoping to borrow his organic chemists for use in chemical weapons development. But Bradberton, ever the ruthless businessman, wasn't about to hand them over for free. Instead, he offered a deal. In exchange for his Beveragers division's chemical expertise and weapon design support, the military would grant him access to the highly classified military project, the Life Extension and Prolongation Program, better known as LEAP-X.
You're asking me to take my laboratories and my Beveragers and basically turn them over to your team. I need assurances that my people and my facilities are going to be treated with the respect that they deserve.
You and I both know that's a load of horse shit. Stop treating me like one of your soft drink competitors. I'm here representing the U.S. military. I already told you you'd be well compensated. Now cut the crap and tell me what you're really after.
Fine. I want in on the military's LEAP-X program.
What? How the hell did you know about that?
Let's just say you're not the only one in this room that can throw his weight around in Washington, General. You want me to agree to this proposal, then get me on the LEAP-X list, and I'll sign whatever you want.
I always knew you were a greedy son of a bitch, John. But the last thing I expected to hear is that you were afraid of death.
The contract opened even more doors for Bradberton, gave him access to military-grade robotics, in cooperation with Robco, and a massive mainframe inside of Galactic Zone, all under his control. The new partnership was dubbed Project Cobalt, and the Beveragers began their work in secret. In their research, the Beveragers discovered a military application for the isotope, strontium-90, designation quantum, that would be weaponized in a plethora of ways. They created a quantum-enhanced variant of the standard portable tactical warhead they named the Nuka-Nuke that could be launched from a specific prototype of the Fat Man. They also used the isotope to upgrade the X-01 power armor, making the wearer faster in almost every aspect of battle, and also gave superior ballistic and energy protection. Most interesting was the schematic upgrade to the children's toy, the Thirst Zapper. If you choose to upgrade it, you'll be able to make the toy deadly with 3 new ammo types. Nuka Cherry, an explosive ammo type, Nuka Quantum, a mini-nuke style explosion, and Nuka Cola Original, which inflicts radiation damage on its target. Oh, and it could also be processed into a bright neon blue food additive. I know, right? Super safe. I'm not the only one who's worried about consuming that. One of the Beveragers, Ruth Levitt, sent Bradberton a personal message about wanting to perform tests on it prior to releasing it. And I can tell you now, that didn't last long. Now to Bradberton's side of the deal, the LEAP-X program. After the deal was made, Bradberton contacted Vault-Tec to modify his already existing vault under his office in Nuka-Town to accommodate the machinery required to keep the Leap-X systems running. He embezzled as much money as it took to complete it. Leap-X was a feat of biomechanical engineering that could preserve organ tissue and keep a human subject alive indefinitely, but it had its shortcomings. General Braxton even tries to tell Bradberton that in a holotape while discussing the deal.
If you know so much about Leap-X, then you know it's in its infancy, and there are a lot of kinks to be worked out. It isn't as easy as throwing a switch and suddenly you can live forever.
Stop trying to talk me out of it. Our countries are in a race where no one comes in second, General. So you need to ask yourself, can you really afford to stand here and say no?
You had this all figured out before I even arrived, didn't you? Okay, fine. You want in on the Leap-X program, you've got yourself a deal.
But Bradberton was immovable, and the deal pushed forward. In a terminal entry roughly 10 months after the deal with Braxton was made, he laments about how the deal seems to be shifting. The original intention of Leap-X was to create a living biosuit to preserve my body after it would normally expire. But now I've been told by those idiots on the Leap-X team that it's not possible. Leap-X requires so much power and so many special components it can only accommodate no more than 15 pounds of organic matter. That leaves me no choice. If I want to prolong my life, I'll have to have them preserve only my head. I have told them to proceed. I haven't come this far just to give up and await the inevitable. Even knowing the price of losing his original autonomy, Bradberton proceeded with the plan. In his final terminal entry, he states, "I will be undergoing the surgical procedure to have my head removed and transferred into the Leap-X system." Maybe he thought they were going to preserve his head in a different way. Maybe integrating him into some sort of robot host connected with the Leap-X system. But all the while not knowing what the actual cost of the procedure would be and what General Braxton and the US military would actually do with the 15 pounds of organic matter left. In the end, General Braxton got what he wanted and Bradberton got what he deserved. He made his bed, which is now ajar, and now he has to sit in it.
What the hell happened to you?
I made a devil's bargain, though I didn't know it at the time. This was General Braxton's plan all along. Damn the man. I'm such a fool for taking him at his word. He never told me that this would be the price. Like a fool, I leapt before I looked. I've certainly paid the price for my short-sightedness.
Let's shift our attention to the Beveragers. Due to the importance Bradberton and the military placed on the organic chemists, a lab with cutting-edge technology was built specifically for their work underneath the Nuka-Cola bottling plant near the park. It came with anything the chemists would need, including a dedicated reactor and living quarters. But after control of the Beveragers was handed over to the military, the dynamic of the group began to change. The head of the group, Dr. Rex Masham, was thrilled by the opportunity, stating in a terminal entry, "I can't wait to stop dabbling with soft drinks and get to some important world-changing work." Without consulting his team, Rex agreed to the contract. 3 other chemists were listed in the project, including Dr. Kevin Bennell, Dr. Edmund Medford, and the most talented among them, Dr. Ruth Levitt. Dr. Bennell and Dr. Edmund appeared to have no issues with the deal, but Dr. Levitt protested, insisting this goes against their morality.
You wanted to talk? So talk.
Don't take that tone with me, Rex. You know exactly why I'm pulling you aside. You told Bradberton our team would work on Project Cobalt without asking the rest of us first.
I don't have to consult with any of you first. I'm the lead Beverager, remember? There's a reason JC put me in charge, you know. He trusts me to make the hard decisions and make them quickly.
Are you even listening to yourself? JC? What, are the 2 of you best buddies now? When you talk like that, I picture you in a crushed velvet jacket, swirling
You know what,
Go to hell,
Kate?
Rex.
I expected
You'll have my
more out of
resignation by the end of the month.
It was so bad that she almost quit, but to appease her, Rex placed her in charge of further developing the isotope behind Nuka-Quantum, hoping that focusing on what she loves to do would distract her for the time being. Unfortunately, things just spiraled from there. The first few trials were ultimately fatal, and Ruth had had enough, putting in her resignation at the end of October. Bradberton, being a peach of a man, heard this from Rex and blacklisted her from the rest of the industry. Rex and Ruth's relationship only got worse after October 23, 2077, when the lab was sealed after the bombs were dropped.
I already have my things packed, and I'll be out of here by tomorrow. So until then, why don't you just stay out of my way?
Come on, Dr. Levitt, be reasonable. After the US wins this war, I'm sure they'll close Project Cobalt, and we can get back to making people happy.
My mind's made up. Bradberton might own half of Massachusetts, but I'll be damned if I'm going to let him own me. And if you two were smart, you'd both get out of here.
What the hell is that alarm? What's that noise?
Oh my God, it's happening. How could it be happening now? I thought we were winning this war. Have they launched missiles at us? Damn it, I wish we could see what was going on outside. Oh my God, the door just sealed. We're stuck down here. It's a built-in safety precaution. Bradberton must have hit the panic button in his office. It seals all the high-security areas up tight. His vault, our lab, the power plant's control center. All of it. We have to face facts. We might be down here for a long time.
Well, Rex, looks like you got what you wanted.
Convinced that they were America's only hope, Rex, Kevin, and Edmund continued their work on Project Cobalt for weeks, until Edmund broke under the strain of isolation and hung himself in his room. To make matters worse, Rex's reaction to his death was unhinged, and the conversation that followed led to more tragedy.
I don't care if Bradberton made you the Pope. You're not telling me what to do anymore. We've been stuck down here for weeks. There's no Bradberton anymore. There's no Nuka-World anymore. No nothing anymore. Don't you get it, Rex? We're done. Humanity's done. We might be all that's left. And you want to continue working on this bullshit project?
Why don't you wake up, Kate? You don't know what's going on out there. There could be Chinese soldiers right above us and we'd never know. Project Cobalt could be the thing that saves us. Saves America. We have to keep working.
I wish the two of you would stop fighting. We need to keep level heads if we're going to survive. Look, Kate, maybe Rex is right. Maybe if we concentrate on our work, it'll take our mind off of things for a while. None of us want to end up like Dr. Medford.
Look, I don't deny it's a shame what happened to Dr. Medford, but at least he kept his mind on his work. The fact of the matter is, he lost it. He was weak. He let his emotions take over. I don't want to see the same thing happen to you.
You're crazy. At first, I thought you were just driven, but I was wrong. You're absolutely crazy. Why don't you pull out some of your secret recordings you've been making of us? You know, the ones you think we don't know about? Play them back and listen to yourself over the last few weeks. Listen to how goddamn insane you sound. Well, you know what? I'm done. I'm done with you, and I'm done hiding down here, waiting until you snap.
Get away from the door controls, Kate. I'm not kidding.
A gun? So what are you gonna do? You going to shoot me now? Is that what this has come to? I said this to you a few months ago, and I'll say it again. Go to hell, Rex, and goodbye.
Oh my God! You shot her! She's gone.
I had to do it, Kevin. She left me no choice. Now let's take care of this mess and get back to work.
Almost a year had passed after the death of Ruth, and Rex and Kevin continued their work. Kevin couldn't take the stress any longer and tried to flee through the reactor overflow pipe, but Rex, in a psychotic state, pursued him. He opened fire and mortally wounded Kevin. Rex wrote about the incident in a terminal entry stating, "He was probably trying to sell my work to the goddamn enemy. I couldn't let him go. I know I managed to hit him a few times with my pistol before he disappeared down the overflow tunnel. The blood loss and radiation will surely finish him off. Serves him right. Traitor. With absolutely no regret for his actions, Rex continued his work until completion, but had descended into lunacy, eventually perishing from radiation poisoning and waiting for a military rescue that would never come. This is just one of many incidents brought about by the choices of a few driven people. Bradberton had pushed Rex too hard and abandoned him at a critical point, and Rex, in turn, eventually destroyed everything he loved. Vault-Tec is infamous in the Wasteland for their involvement in disturbing and inhumane experiments on innocents, and Nuka-World wasn't spared from their influence. I spoke briefly about their installation in Galactic Zone in a prior broadcast, but we'll go into more detail here. Behind the set dressing of Among the Stars, Vault-Tec was far more than a marketing sponsor collaborating with Nuka-World. In fact, I couldn't find a shred of evidence that Bradberton had any knowledge of what was actually happening in the so-called attraction. To him, it was merely a branding and infrastructure partnership. Vault-Tec would supply cutting-edge simulation and automation systems to enhance park immersion, and Nuka-World would give them an opportunity to promote their vaults. Looking through one of the Vault-Tec terminals, I found an internal email stating Bradberton was a useful figurehead who requires limited disclosure. In fact, one company memo reads, Nuka-Cola's management has been instructed that all reactive behavioral monitoring is for crowd flow analytics only. Full psychological parameters remain classified. Seems Bradberton thought that Vault-Tec was helping them improve guest satisfaction metrics. How can a man of his business acumen be so woefully out of the loop on such a big deal? Getting into specifics, there seemed to be 5 experiments Vault-Tec was doing on visitors as well as Nuka-World employees. According to terminal entries, they were as follows. Experiment 001, Brainwave Disruption. Use of radiation scrubbers in the exhibit to emit an electromagnetic field that causes interference in the brainwave patterns of human subjects. Expected results: minor loss of motor control, temporary stupor, and forgetfulness. This experiment is stationed near the entrance of the vault. When you step through the electromagnetic field, your vision will blur for a short time. Experiment 002, Subliminal Suggestions. Use of audio emitters to generate varying degrees of subliminal suggestions overlaid with a specific frequency. Expected results: acceptance of suggestions causing subjects to perform involuntary actions, headaches, depression, or other phenomena resulting from neurochemical release. This experiment is stationed when you enter the residential wing. You'll notice your vision get blurry and hear soft whispers as you walk through. Experiment 003, Hypnotic Pheromones, or Airborne Toxins. Use of genetic modification on flora to release a pheromone-like airborne toxin which will be inhaled while passing the emitters. Expected results: loss of independent thought, minor addiction, and susceptibility to suggestion. This experiment is stationed in the hydroponics wing. As you walk through, you'll notice a light green mist spraying out in the direction of the hallway. Experiment 004, Theta Radiation. Use of reactor modification to emit theta band radiation in low, short doses. Expected results: drowsiness, extreme fatigue, potential paranoia from sleep deprivation. This experiment is stationed in the reactor room. Same sort of effect as the scrubbers and subliminal message areas, a minor vision blur when you walk through. And Experiment 005, a slightly more secretive experiment, was long-term testing of 001 to 004 on staff to assess long-term effects. There are a few terminal entries that went into specifics about experiments 002 and 004. The subliminal suggestion experiment started off relatively harmless, with a blue-grade holotape having visitors take off their hat or blink their eyes a few times. But upping it to an orange-grade holotape caused some more intense effects, like shoving the visitor in front of them, and security had to be called to pull them out of the exhibit. Fortunately, the red-grade holotapes were never used. Another terminal entry talks about Experiment 004. Supposedly, theta radiation doesn't leave any lasting physical effects and works almost instantly. Visitors were getting tired, dizzy, and looking momentarily lost and slurring their speech occasionally. The Vault-Tec employee was apparently getting bored experimenting on strangers. Oh no, how awful. And wanted to dial up the torture, but the lead scientist, Dr. Bateman, wouldn't allow it. Interestingly, it seems the Vault-Tec employees were also being experimented on. I know. Shocking. In a terminal entry, the theta radiation technician by the name of C. Grunner says he was woken up by Dr. Bateman from a nap who yelled at him for falling asleep on the job. But he doesn't even remember falling asleep. He starts thinking that maybe he's involved in the experiments because he would make the perfect long-term subject. Grunner gets more and more agitated and paranoid over time, eventually locking himself in his office, stating if Bateman tries to override the doors, he'll shoot him on the spot. The last entry in Grunner's terminal is a dark one. He reached a breaking point when his coworker, Langston, ran into the office screaming. He wrote, "He kept yelling and screaming and the sound was making my head split. I couldn't take it anymore, so I shot him. I tried to leave the control room, but we're locked in. I don't know what's real anymore and what isn't. My head hurts all the time. I keep getting dizzy. I keep falling asleep. Is the world gone? Was Langston lying or telling the truth? I don't know what to do. Maybe it's time I put an end to this. I think I know what I have to do." And seeing the two skeletons in his office, it seems he shot himself after killing Langston. The last clues we get about what happened in this house of horrors is an operations terminal of an engineer from Vault-Tec, a J. Hodgson. He starts out relatively positive about the position. He's coasting along with double the pay and riding rides after the park's closed. He seems concerned about a gentleman who collapsed in the exhibit, but Dr. Bateman brushes it off, telling him he must have had heat stroke. It goes downhill a bit with him noticing bursts of anger over small things and terrible headaches. Hodgson starts getting concerned when he notices journal entries that he doesn't remember typing or smelling like alcohol when he doesn't remember drinking. It all comes to a head when a visitor goes nuts and runs out of the exhibit screaming, and another takes off his clothes and walks around until security drags him out. The last entry says a few things that we'll find familiar. Hodgson is getting nosebleeds, terrible headaches, and is constantly misplacing or losing things. Hopefully he isn't one of the skeletons in this place. Vault-Tec Among the Stars was an insidious place filled with employees with no moral compass and horrible experiments that destroyed lives. Honestly, I'm glad to see it empty. The Nuka-Cola Corporation publicly framed the Safari Adventure Park as a prestigious zoological attraction, a 7-year project that brought together exotic species from around the world. They even hosted school trips. They did their best to create a positive public image despite growing concerns and protests from animal rights activists. However, the public had no idea that underneath the wildlife conservation efforts, there were unregulated and inhumane experiments going on in a high-tech lab under the Welcome Center. An activist group named AVAD, or Animals, Friends, and Defenders, was alerted to said experiments and started causing issues which began as benign, but eventually led into more dangerous territory. They would go into Safari Adventure in animal masks and sometimes full animal suits to cause havoc. When that didn't produce the desired results, they stepped up their schemes, attacking park staff and spray painting "Stop the Torture" on a security office door. In a Welcome Center terminal, a security staff member stated in a memo, "If you spot any of these individuals, do not attempt to approach. Contact the security office or activate the nearest protectron." They were obviously not just a thorn in the security staff's side, but a more dangerous threat than initially believed. They were eventually banned from Nuka-World altogether. One of the scientists by the name of Dr. Hine writes in a terminal after the vandalism, "Those damn AFAD idiots are at it again. I don't know why those morons think we're hurting animals. Anything that we need to dispose of in the laboratory is dealt with in a swift and rather humane manner." Dr. Hine's version of humane was most likely incinerating animals that didn't meet their experiment's standards. Honestly, AFAD might have had a point on that one. AFAD's actions got more and more radical as the Great War approached. The morning the bombs dropped, one of the members impersonated a park employee and got in contact with Dr. Hine. The activist lured him out to the unfinished Angry Anaconda construction site under the pretense of an escaped injured animal they needed assistance catching. Before Dr. Hine knew it, he was being held against his will, surrounded and contained by AFAD members. They sent Bradberton the following direct message: "Attention, Mr. Bradberton," or one of his lackeys. "We have tried doing this the nice way, and you haven't played along. You even went so far as to ban us from your parks. Well, sir, this is a free country despite what you corporate fat cats think. AFAD is going to show you don't have the control you thought your money buys you. We have your top scientist, Dr. Hine, held hostage right where you plan to build your precious Angry Anaconda. Come alone, and we can discuss the terms of his release. Bring the police, and you lose your star employee. Make the right choice, Mr. Bradberton. AFAD."
Please, I don't know what you people want from me.
Stop playing innocent, Dr. Hine. We know what's going on in that laboratory of yours. We know Bradberton has you performing cloning experiments on the animals you locked up in that torture chamber you call a lab.
I can assure you, we treat all of our specimens with the utmost respect. There's really no reason to keep me here against my will.
Oh, that's where you're wrong, Dr. Hine. We brought you to the Angry Anaconda construction site for a very specific reason. As a supposed man of science, how could you be so stupid to allow Bradberton to build this thing so close to where you're keeping the animals? Do you have any idea the lasting damage it'll do to them? Well, do you?
Look, why don't you just untie me and then let me head back to the laboratory? I'll talk to Mr. Bradberton, and I'm sure we can all have this misunderstanding cleared up in no time.
Hey, Mike, Ingrid, something's going on outside.
What is it, Rabbit?
I don't know. People running around everywhere. Maybe looking for us. Maybe not. Looks pretty crazy.
All right. Rabbit, stay with Dr. Hine. Robin, let's walk the perimeter of the place with Mouse and see what the hell is going on.
Unfortunately, there wouldn't be enough time to save Dr. Hine. The bombs dropped shortly after. Dr. Hine and the AFAD members all perished together under the Angry Anaconda. While AFAD focused on exposing the park's secrets and protecting the animals, the real story of Safari Adventure lay deeper. The true horrors were hidden in the secret lab where Dr. Hine and his colleague, Dr. McDermott, pushed the boundaries of life itself, where ambition overrode morals and science trumped over the organic. The Nuka-Gen facility sits under the Welcome Center, a high-tech laboratory created specifically for the initial purpose of producing rare, exotic, or unusual specimens for Safari Adventure that visitors couldn't see anywhere else. But it eventually led to more ethically questionable experimentation. Once the lab was fully operational, the scientists began experimenting with dietary manipulation, environmental stressors, and behavioral studies on the animals contained within. Their goal was to understand how cloned animals behaved under different conditions, likely making them more controllable or engaging. Unfortunately, it didn't stop there. The experiments became more extreme over time. They attempted to produce animals with specific traits, even stating in one horrifying terminal entry, "I've isolated the segmentation issues. Polar bears kept coming out of the Nuka-Gen replicator inside out and then exploding." It was actually a rather spectacular result. It's strictly from a scientific point of view. Wow. Sounds like a real stand-up guy. Just to solidify my point, in a second terminal entry, Dr. Hine mentions he drank too much on New Year's Eve and wakes up next to the Nuka-Gen replicator and realizes a program is running. He writes, "It looks like I was trying to sequence an anteater with 16 giraffe-type legs, scales, 4 eyes, and 2 tails. Amusingly, even in my inebriated state, I've created a fairly viable specimen sequence that could possibly work. I don't think the animal would live very long, but my scientific curiosity says I should give it a try." I'm starting to believe he got what he deserved, but that's just me. We can learn from Dr. McDermott's holotapes that he survived the bombs that dropped on the morning of October 23rd, 2077. He may have survived, but due to the radiation, he became ghoulified. But eventually decided to continue his work, including a new project. Himself. It seems Dr. McDermott was attempting to combine DNA from a chameleon, alligator, and a sample he named Q334. From what I can tell in other journal entries, it seems Q334 was super mutant DNA. He writes, "While foraging for food and supplies today, I stumbled across the remains of an astonishing biological specimen. It was humanoid in appearance, but much larger. It had greenish-colored skin and roughly human features. It appeared to be wearing clothing, and had recently been killed from what looked like bullet wounds." His last entry shows that he's named his creation the Gator Claw. Ah, that name rings a bell. They're those lovely green-colored monsters that walk on 2 legs and inhabit Safari Adventure. Thanks, Dr. McDermott. While overtaking the power plant from the small band of ghouls and the Nuka gang that was feeling very butthurt by my lack of favoritism, I came across an oversight terminal with a few interesting entries. These entries in the power plant are important to read because they show how woefully negligent Nuka-World was with their employees and visitors. It's honestly eye-opening. There are 4 incident reports by various workers at the plant that are of note. We'll start with the least impactful to most. On August 18th, 2077, an after-hours system failure was experienced, resulting in full reboot of all power relays. Employee error cited as primary cause. On October 10th, 2077, a lighting test for the upcoming Halloween Spooktacular event tripped the main breakers. Employees would like to note that repeated complaints have been entered regarding the power load of said event on an aging system that has not been updated in at least 7 years. I'm sensing a pattern. On June 12, 2077, a 90-second sag was experienced, resulting in electrical, mechanical malfunctions across Galactic Zone. Fault traced to vomit on exposed wiring on the Handy Scrambler. Recommend that splash guards be installed on all critical systems to prevent future incidents. And the most concerning entry of them all, on April 28, 2077, critical failure of Redacted due to a series of events starting with Redacted blockage in the secondary pump system, followed by PORV in Redacted stuck in open position. This resulted in the loss of Redacted M3 of coolant and possible leakage of, you're kidding me, Redacted into Park River. Okay, so it seems they wanted to keep the particulars of this specific incident hidden from park staff, techs, and contracted employees. Possibly even from the government or regulatory agencies. Shady? Absolutely. An email sent from a C. Carlson to management stated, "What the hell happened? We submitted a full report last week explaining the whole series of failures that resulted in who knows how much contamination. Why wasn't the park opening delayed?" Carlson had a valid concern. If there had been a reactor meltdown, why wasn't it being dealt with appropriately? Never fear though, surely someone will have a decent response. Let's see. After consulting our corporate offices, blah blah blah, on-site evaluation of the Class 7 event was performed incorrectly. And the incident was not nearly as severe as initially feared. Okay, that's not a great start. Let's continue. Corporate assures us that everything is great. Please read through your employee agreement, specifically with regards to the dissemination of any information about your work here at the parks. Blah, blah, blah. Discussion of any events on park grounds is a violation of that agreement and could result in administrative action. Signed, T. O'Connor, Director of Human Resources. So I guess shirking responsibility is their plan. It seems, instead of doing the appropriate actions required for safety, they politely threatened Carlson, one of the evaluators for the Class 7 reactor failure, and in the end, they followed through. In the final terminal entry, the liaison between the power plant employees and Nuka-Cola Corporate, A. Buckley, mentions additional shifts being open due to Carlson being fired. It won't come as a shock by now that Bradberton cared very little about his employees or even the visitors bringing their families and spending money in his park. He was all about his legacy, immortality, and profit. I'll go through each section of the park to find anything that proves that and bring it to light. How they inspired their employees to work harder. In one terminal entry from management at the World of Refreshment states, "We've only got a couple days before the grand reopening, and if management doesn't feel like you're suitably eager and enthusiastic, you can be replaced. Don't forget, they can still decide to go fully automated for the reopening, so buck up and ride the Quantum." There's even a suggestion in there to drink Quantum straight from the river. Quote, "It even kills bacteria." Who the hell were these people in management? A manager by the name of Ryan Penning in Galactic Zone tried reaching out to Bradberton's executive assistant, Peyton Huxley, to try and get some support with the Starport Nuka mainframe. In an email, he says, "We're experiencing all sorts of minor control malfunctions with older model robots. I'm sending over some incident reports, nothing serious yet, but if Star Control ever loses its connection with these robots, I'm not sure what they'll do." Penning continued stressing that the hardware was too far behind the software and that a temporary shutdown is needed to do a major overhaul before catastrophic failure occurs. Shockingly, he never received a reply. Penning got so frustrated he reached out to Bradberton directly. Bradberton, instead of responding, reached out to his assistant via email stating that he was irritated by the inconvenience and he wouldn't be shutting down anything for any amount of time. Which is honestly mind-blowing because the robots in the park were fitted with military-grade weapons. Bradberton even said, "If things go south at Nuka-World, that force of robots is the only protection we have. Cooperating with Robco was the only way I could get that type of weaponry allowed outside of a military base. So suck it up and get whatever his name's ass moving over there to fix this problem." Real nice. When the trials for Nuka-Cola Quantum began and the test subjects were losing their lives, did Bradberton stop the experiments, reach out to the families, or even offer an apology? Of course not. Peyton was no less disgusting than Bradberton himself. He took the initiative to send the victims' families Nuka condolences, fruit, and cheese baskets. In an email to Peyton, Bradberton wrote, "That idea saved us billions, I suspect. You're at the top of your game, Peyton, and maybe someday you'll be sitting in the big chair. For now, enjoy that shiny new Quantum Blue Corvega you found parked in your driveway this morning. You earned it." Truly despicable. Like two moldy peas in one rotten pod. Not only were the very experiments themselves horribly illegal, reprehensible, and irresponsible, but hiding the effects and lying to the surviving family members? Come on. There were more problems in Safari Adventure besides AFAD's shenanigans. Visitors were bitten by reptiles, and venomous snakes kept escaping into the children's petting zoo. LB Shelton, a security staff member stationed in Safari Adventure, frequently contacted Bradberton to request replacements for the 12 guards who had been assigned to Project Cobalt. Each message went unanswered. Safari Adventure wasn't the only understaffed area of Nuka-World. In Dry Rock Gulch, staff at Doc Phosphates wrote in a terminal entry that they were in dire need of more snacks being stocked and more employees needing to be hired. Visitors were getting completely wasted and causing scenes, and the understaffed crew just couldn't keep up. The restaurant, essentially a saloon disguised as a soda bar, had become dangerous for both employees and visitors alike. Again, there was no reply from Bradberton or any other high-ranking employee to fix the issue. One of Bradberton's terminal entries, he straight up admits to embezzling funds from his businesses for personal matters. I had a Vault-Tec employee modify my personal vault to accommodate the machinery required to keep the Leap X systems running. It's cost me a fortune, and I've had to divert money from the amusement park, but who cares? My money and the park won't be worth anything when the world is a smoking ruin. I've flown a few of Leap X researchers down here to make sure the prototype works. I bet they're glad to still have a job, seeing as all the military's money got diverted into wartime resources. I'm hearing complaints from my Nuka-World team about the cutbacks, but they'll just have to make do. Not only embezzling, but ignoring the staff of the original source of the cash flow. As for the public, they weren't spared from Bradberton's lies either. Nuka Quantum was marketed as safe and refreshing, and the radiation glow from the isotope was marketed as vitamin-rich luminescence. Visitors who came to Nuka-World were being controlled by sound, color, and subliminal messaging in one way or another. In Bradberton's eyes, the park was a weapon in the war for consumer obedience. Insane. There were two personal stories I found quite sad that I wanted to share. Wandering around Safari Adventure, I stumbled across some cellar doors behind a certain outdoor cage. Going down into the enclosed space, there isn't much here except for a short tunnel, a terminal, and cage bars separating 2/3 of the tunnel from the entrance. I was a bit shocked when I looked around the corner to see a gator claw and a yaoguai fighting to the death. Not something you see every day. Taking a look at the terminal, I see 5 entries, starting with 8B Ross. He seems to be frustrated he's the only one getting called for crap jobs, and when he comes back from one, he picks up on some weird energy from his coworkers. A Tomlinson and a Fremke. In the second entry, he's even more suspicious when he brings some equipment to a maintenance shed and sees his coworkers in their car after calling out sick. And they are doing some sort of handoff. Things start getting complicated when Ross puts a holotape recorder in an empty locker next to Fremke's and catches a conversation between Fremke and Tomlinson. They were talking about something called Project Cobalt. He doesn't know what it is and wonders why he wasn't told as well. In the second to last entry, Ross has simply had it. He corners Fremke and demands to know what Project Cobalt is, and at first, Fremke tries to lie his way out of it. But he finally gives in and tells Ross it was a joint cooperation project between the US military and Nuka-World. Ross can't believe what he's hearing. What would the military need from Nuka-World? Fremke tells Ross to drop it, but it seems he doesn't. He states at the end of the entry he'll be reaching out to speak to Bradberton personally. In the final entry, it's no longer Ross writing down his thoughts, it's Fremke. To get the full impact of the entry, I'll read it in its entirety. It's been 2 weeks since Ross asked me about Cobalt. I told that idiot to drop it, but he wouldn't listen. All of a sudden, our department gets notice that Ross is taking an unscheduled vacation and no one seems to know where he's gone. Now they want me to purge his terminal before the end of October. I hate to wipe all of this out, but I can't refuse. If I don't do what the security department says, I may end up on vacation too. We all know Ross didn't go on vacation. The question is, what did Bradberton do with him? The second story hit me a bit harder. It really shows just how much power Bradberton had. While visiting the Robco Battle Zone, I found a terminal in the control room above the stands with another astounding entry alluding to another negligent incident at the park. On August 23, 2077, an unnamed employee wrote, "We are all saddened by the sudden and rather violent loss of Tim Whittingstone, a technician who's been with us since the attraction opened in 2072. The official investigation by the Bradberton police has determined the cause of death to be accidental and has released the Battle Zone and Robco from liability." We can infer from what we've read in previous terminal entries about the robots being far from up to date, as well as the mainframe needing an overhaul. No sender is listed on the memo, just a date. Another faceless corporate message released after the Bradberton police cleared Nuka-World of wrongdoing. There were ignored maintenance requests, understaffed areas littered the entire park, environmental hazards, terrible filtration systems, animal attacks, mechanical malfunctions, workers being replaced with automation, and deaths of park employees that were never reported or covered up. Nuka-World was more than a theme park. It was a microcosm of ambition unchecked by ethics. From the overworked employees to the secret labs and even shady dealings with the military, every cheerful facade hid a darker truth. Visitors may have seen only adventure and spectacle, but behind the banners and bright lights lay negligence, exploitation, and experiments. In the end, the park story isn't just about fun, it's a cautionary tale of how profit, secrecy, and unchecked power can turn even the happiest place into a breeding ground for disaster. Survivors and dwellers, thank you for joining me today as we trudged through the muck of the dark underbelly of this once great park. I will see you in the next broadcast where we'll uncover more fascinating and sorrowful stories out here in the wastes. Until next time, I am the Wasteland Historian, and this archive entry is complete.
Quench your thirst for adventure and